Hi everybody, thanks for joining me. This is Parker from DeskprepChampions.com, and today I want to cover a special problem. This is a systems of equation, which is one of my favorite types of problems. The question is on screen: what are the x and y values for the following system? X minus 12 equals 4y and 6x equals 60y. So go ahead guys, pause the video, you know the drill, try it out on your own first. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to try this out on your own, so let's get into it. But first of all, like I said, this is a systems of equation question, meaning there's two different equations that each have two variables in them. And these seem to be hit or miss with some students, although they're really not that hard. But some students, they don't understand this, and some seem to get it right away, even at the college level. I'm not just talking about GED students. Some students that are doing this for standardized tests like the GRE and other grad entrance exams, some students just don't ever figure out how to do these for some reason. And I'm not quite sure why, because it's really not that hard, although it's tricky at first. But let me show you how to do it. So there's two different methods to solve the systems of equations. So the first method is the easiest method, but it can take a little bit longer. It's not my preferred method, but it's the one that you should probably stick with if you find these tricky, because you're going to get the answer right 100% of the time, as long as you do it right. So substitution. And like I said, this is the method that you should probably stick with if you find these tricky, because it's always going to work. And there's not a whole ton of guesswork. So the first step is always going to be to try to simplify as much as possible. So we've got x minus 12 equals 4y. We're not going to be able to simplify here. But you know what? Here's what we can do. Let's just rewrite this so that we can get all of the terms on one side of the equation, so that we can get this to line up nicely. So what I mean by that is let's get this number. Let's move that 12 over here. So we see minus 12 on this side. We have to do the reciprocal operation. That's a fancy word for the opposite, which is going to be addition. And so we're going to add that on both sides. So let me just rewrite this as x equals 4y plus 12. Okay, so this is going to be this is our first equation right here. And so down here we've got 6x equals 60y. So we can actually simplify this. So let's divide a 6 out of each of these terms. So let's divide by 6 right here on this side, and we'll also divide by 6 on the other side of this as well. So 6x divided by 6 is just going to give us x, because 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 1 times x, we don't usually write the x. So, and then 60 divided by 6 is going to be 10. So we've got x equals 10y. So we've now got two equations. We've got our equation 1, which is x equals 4y plus 12, and we've got our equation 2, x equals 10y. So now the strategy is going to be to basically take one of our variables, and we're going to plug that in. So what I mean by that is, what I mean by plug in is what we're going to do is take the x from this equation and substitute that into the other equation for x. Okay, so we've got x equals 4y plus 12. So I'm going to take this x and plug it into this equation for x down here. So here is how I would then rewrite it. So I'd have 4y plus 12 equals 10y. And if you're not understanding this, please pause the video and think about it for a second. It's not really that complicated, but sometimes people don't really see this at first. And so if you do, good job. You're on the right track here. But all I really did was I solved both equations for x, and then I'm going to just take my x up here and plug it down into my equation 2, right? So now that I've solved equation 1 for x, I'm plugging that x value into equation 2. All right, and so I've got 4y plus 12 equals 10y. So now I can simplify. I can divide a 2 out of each of these terms. And if I do that, what's 4 divided by 2? That's going to be 2y plus 6 equals 5y. Just makes it a little bit easier to work with here. And so now, as always, we want to get the variable by itself on one side. So y is our variable, so let's get the terms with the y by itself on one side of the equation. So we've got 2y, so I want to do minus 2y on both sides here. Okay, and I'm going to draw a big arrow up here to show that I'm rewriting up here for the sake of room. So we've got 6 equals 3y. And so now, like I said, the goal is to get this y by itself. So let's divide by 3 on both sides, because this is really 3 multiplied by y. So the opposite of division, or the reciprocal, whichever fancy word you want to use, we're going to divide by 3, and we're going to get y by itself. So whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2. 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So we've got 2 equals y. So that's one of our solutions, is y equals 2. Okay, so now that we know that y equals 2, okay, let's just remember that. Let me clear out all this gunk here. Let's clear this out here. So y equals 2. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to find what x equals. So now that I know that y equals 2, I just take that y and I just plug it back in down here. Okay, and by plug in, I just mean take this 2 and substitute it in here for y. So the way we do that would be x equals 10. And now I'm substituting the 2 in here for y. So I do 10 times 2, and we find that x equals 20. Okay, so we've got x equals 20 here. So y equals 2 and x equals 20. So we already know that to be correct. So that's the first method, guys. Hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, it's not really that hard. You just have to remember kind of what you're doing here. And the trick was, starting out, what we did was we just solved both equations for one of the variables, and then we just took that variable x. So here, like for example, we also could have gone the other way, right? So we could have said, well, x equals 10y. So I could have taken this x here, substituted it in the equation 1 for x, and then it would have just been 10y equals 4y plus 12. And it's the exact same thing, it's just written a different way. Doesn't matter how you do it. So, like I said, if you're confused up to this point in the video, please, please, please either ask me below in the comments specifically what you're confused about so I can help you, or go back and just watch this a couple times, because this is important to know for your test. You might get a problem or two like this on your test, and you got to know how to do this. It's really not that hard. It just seems like it's a lot of steps. So then the second way to do it, which I think is much easier, is again here, you want to start off the same exact way. So you want to simplify again, and you want to arrange the question so that you've got one variable by itself on one side of the equation. And you could have also done like 4y minus x plus 12, but I like to keep it, since we've got these x's here, I just like to line up our x's. And then the second method is going to be like, I just call it the cancellation method. Cancellation, and this takes a little bit more guesswork, but it's a lot faster. It's so much faster, it's not even funny, but it takes a little bit more judgment, I guess, to get it right, so to speak. So what you're going to do is multiply everything down here by the reciprocal, and then we're going to add. So what I mean by that is we want to take the x's and we want to get them to cancel out, okay? You could also alternatively do it with the y, but I think it's a lot easier with the x's. So the idea here is we want to add up these equations in such a way that the x's are going to cancel out. So in order to get that to happen, we need to multiply everything in this equation by a negative, right, by -1. So that would give us x plus negative x, which is going to cancel out. So x plus negative x is just going to be 0. And then we've got, now we add this up, we've got 4y plus negative 10y, which is going to be negative 6y, and plus 12, which is going to be the same. And so now what I can do is add this y over here. So we want to get the variable alone as always. So I want to add 6y to both sides of the equation. So now we've got 6y equals 12. And to get the y by itself, we see 6 times y. We're just going to divide by 6 on this side to clear that out, and divide by 6 on that side, because whatever you do to one side, you always do to the other. And we're just left with y equals 12 divided by 6, which is 2. So y equals 2, which we already know is the correct answer. And so we know that y equals 2, and so now what we would do, now that we know that, is we'd go back and do one of our original equations. You can check it in the first one or the second, it doesn't really matter, and just substitute that in and see what we get here. So for x, all right, so let's figure out what x equals. So by substitute in, again, what I mean is you would just do 4 times 2. So I'm just going to write this up here where there's room here. So we've got x is going to equal 4 times 2 plus 12. And now 4 times 2 is 8 plus 12. It gives us 20. So x equals 20, which is what we already got. All right, so those are the two methods to do it, guys. Like I said, I would stick to substitution if you're having trouble with this. Cancellation is much faster and easier once you get it down, but it does take a little bit guesswork. It is a little bit trickier. So if you have trouble with this, just let me know down below. Just tell me specifically which step of the process you're having trouble with so I can clarify and help you guys get through this. Because like I said, once you know how to get these questions right, it's kind of like free points on the test. But a lot of students do struggle with these. Some get it right away, some don't. It seems like it's kind of hit or miss, but if you're missing it right now, I want to help you get a hit on this so that you can knock your score out of the park. Okay, I'm going to stop the video before I say anything else that's super cliche and super lame, but if you like this video and found it helpful, give me a thumbs up. Let me know down below if you want me to make more system of equations questions to help you guys understand this, and please subscribe. You'll get more GED math videos and other videos where I put myself on YouTube and ramble and make math videos and other things like that that some people might like. Hopefully you do. So thanks a lot, guys, and this comes out of my GED Math Champions Guide, 50 free GED math problems. Get that down below. I'll put the link there. Good luck on your studying.